Well, hey, howdy, Brother Herb. Welcome to Camp Wound-Dog Workshop. Alright, here we go. Let me go over some of the stuff we got. You sent me a 319 and 2 reading lamps. So here's my thought on these. The single biggest issue with the 319 were the stress cracks. We got 1, 2, 3 stress cracks. Now what I can do is use Caswell Tank Sealer. Caswell Tank Sealer is a 2-part epoxy that was specifically designed to seal gas tanks in aircraft and autos. You mix it up, pour it in, roll it around so the inside is completely covered, and let it set up. It takes about anywhere from 20 to an hour and a half to set up, depending on temperature. Because of the length of this particular stress crack, that's the longest one, I would want to give this 2 coats of Caswell just to be on the safe side. So I'd coat it, let it set up for a day, let it cure for another day, and then give it a second coat. The other issue, and that should deal with the stress cracks as far as pressurability. The other issue is this one little dent. Now, we talked about pressurizing the tank and blowing the dent out, but the problem is with these stress cracks, I would not want to overpressurize this tank. Typically what I do to get dents out is I use a dent puller, and it's an automotive tool that I buy from Eastwood that makes all kinds of stuff for cars. And what it is a gadget like this. You pull the trigger and see this little guy here goes up and down. Well, Eastwood gives you little plastic things that you screw to, or epoxy to the body of the car and pull it out. But car steel is so much thinner than Thon's. It's that sealer they give you holds, but it doesn't hold for our application. So what I actually do is I've made a whole bunch of little studs of various sizes, and I would take a stud that's similar in size and shape and actually solder that right to the font, and then the cap fits in this and you pull the dent out. Typically it may take 2 or 3 pulls to get the dent up close to profile. On rare occasions you get an absolutely smooth profile. Then what I do is I heat the solder, melt it off, and I can steel wool while the solder is still hot, steel wool it and get most of the solder off. It will leave a shadow. But in most cases when I'm pulling dents, I'm also replating the font, and I would take, you know, if the surface isn't completely perfect, I use a pewter solder, which is a low temperature solder that's very friendly with copper. And I would fill any imperfections in, carefully use very fine sandpaper to bring it up to profile. And that's kind of like the old school bodywork guys would use lead. When they'd pull a dent out of a car, they'd use a little bit of lead. I use the pewter because then I can copper plate that and then replate the entire font, and you can't even tell that the dent was pulled. We'll talk more about this. The other issue is your vent cap had some pretty significant dents. I was able just to carefully pop them out a little bit to see, you know, exactly where they were and if there was any creases. I think I may be able to massage these out completely. The way I do that in the shop, I've made a couple different tools out of hardwood. This is a roller, and I usually use this on bigger shades. I can't reach in with this one, but this slowly massages the metal back out. You can't use steel because steel is so hard it'll cause the metal to crease more and you get scratches in it. This one, I'd probably use something like this. Put it down, carefully rub it back and forth until it's up to profile. Now, saying that, the nickel on the shade and the nickel on the front is very, very good original nickel. The vent cap itself appears, I didn't try to detarnish this or anything, but it appears that the nickel under here will also be very good. I use a chemical bath to get the worst of the tarnish off and then polish it up. So I can get the worst of these dents out with a roller or a dolly, polish this up, and then with the Caswell seal the font so it's serviceable. And at that point, you're going to have a very serviceable 319 in original condition. It'll look like a Survivor. Okay, that would be one way to go. The other way to go is I can pull this dent out, make sure these dents are completely pulled out. If the profile isn't correct, pewter solder it up to profile, sand it, and then replate both of them. So this will be your call. I can get, as it is now, I can get it nice and bright and shiny and the worst of these dents out and serviceable so it'll hold pressure and burn. Okay, the other things I'd probably want to do on this one, if you already had it disassembled, I'd put it back together just to make sure we had all the parts. I'd take the burner cage and de-rust that. It might need to be replated, and that's no big deal. I just polish up the actual burner unit itself, so I can get this. I'm not going to take it apart. I can polish the burner unit, but it doesn't do much good to plate them because as soon as you heat it, it gets all fogged up. What else? Oh, the other thing was the bail. You sent me the bail. The bail has a very nice wood handle, but it needs to be replated. I can't plate this with the handle on because the chemicals will destroy the finish on your handle. And I've done this in the past for a couple of guys. Where do I have it? What I'll do, set this in my vise to hold it steady, take a sharp razor and tap it into the handle to actually split the handle apart. What I'll do is find the direction, I'll look more closely with a magnifying glass and find the direction of the grain. So I'm making sure to split it along the grain so it splits good. Then I'll replate this, put some wood glue on the handle, put it back together, bind it up until it dries, and then if I need be, I can go over it with very fine silicon carbide sandpaper, and you'll have the original wood on a nice bright handle. Alright, the other thing is, you said you needed a top loop nut. I make those. I have a mold I made from an original. So I cast these loop nuts just like an original. The nickel on this may be fine. I didn't try decrudding that to see, but if it's good and we're leaving it with the original nickel and serviceable, that's what I would do. But if we're replating the whole thing, I can check to see if the globe rest itself needs to be replated. Now the other thing is, I'm kind of looking around shop here, your mica globe. I don't know if you have a mica shade for this or not. You know, Fred Kuntz makes a lot of really nice mica stuff, but I hear he's kind of dialing back a little bit on what he's doing. There's a younger guy, Rob Butts, who started making mica shades. And I've been dealing with Rob. His product is extremely high quality. And his service is pretty quick. I can order something, usually have it within, 2 weeks to 3 weeks. Hang on just a second. I'm going to see if I got a shade for this. Okay, here we go, I do. I have a 319 shade in stock. So if you need the shade, I can supply that to you. Whatever, where's the hole go? Never find it there. Alright, and screw the top loop nut on, and we're good to go. If you have a shade, then we won't worry about that. So that's where we are on the 319. Oh, the other thing is you sent me a generator. And I'm curious. It has your name on it, and it says $72.50. Do you sell these, or did you buy this from somebody? I get mine from Old Coleman Parts, and there's a fellow that makes a good reproduction generator for them, and it's more cost efficient. But what I'll do with the generator that's on here, the old generator, I'll take the packing out, straighten it out, clear the orifice, polish it up, and you'll have another serviceable generator. Okay, so that's where we are on the 319. Now, let me get some of this junk out of here. Now, you sent me those 2 reading lamps. What I did with those is I gave them a quick swirl in a chemical bath to get the tarnish off so I could actually see the surface. One of them has significant amount of denting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 dents on it. I can pull and fill all of these and replate it. But with that amount of labor, you know, we're talking about an investment on that. You know, I don't know, it could run up to, I don't know, $250, $300 to replate this with a smooth profile. That'll be your call. The other one is in really nice shape. It has only 2 little tiny dents. I can get those out and replate that. Both these collars are steel, and typically they rust and pop the nickel. So what I would do is grind these down, then polish them down so they're smooth, and replate them. The Sunshine has a really nice badge. What I would do in this case, I carefully heat this with my torch, melt the solder, take the badge off, then polish up the metal base and replate that, and then solder the badge back on. I'll see if I have thumb screws that'll fit these. I may or may not, depending on what series these filler caps are. Then you asked about the bell. I do have another one of these in the shop that I'm doing for a guy that has the bell. So what I'm going to do, I got a bunch of suppliers of electrical stuff for building lamps and things like that. I'll see if I can find something that's close that'll fit. And if I do, I'll send you a picture of it and wait for your okay. If you like it, I can pick those up, plate those, and get it ready to go. Then also on the burner units and this thing, this torchlight generator, I'll polish those and make sure they're nice and shiny. So that's where we are on your project. If you got any questions, you can email me or call me on that. You know, let me know what your thoughts are on this guy. Do you want to go with the Survivor look with the original nickel, just with the worst of the dents out of this all cleaned up and shiny, and the stress cracks filled? Or do you want it to look brand new and let me replate the whole thing? There's 2 different ways to go. Obviously, replating the whole thing is going to be a little more of an investment than going with the Survivor look. Okay, so that's where we are on that. Now, there's one other thing I want to show you while I got your attention. Hang on. You know, we talked about the 316T arc lantern tribute that I build here in the shop. I happen to have one that's nearing completion. This is my version of a tribute to the Coleman 316 arc lantern. What I've tried to do is keep the the look and feel and theme of the original, but build it in such a way that you can tell that it's not the real deal. You know, I don't want somebody 20 years down the road trying to pass off one of mine as an original for extra money. So some of the differences are, I don't know if I can tilt this. My globe rest, I put a bead at the top and the bottom. My globe rest is slightly taller. Then I tilt it, it's not going to be sucking up fuel. Then instead of engraving on it, I have these brass badges embossed. It says 316T Arc Lantern Camp Wounded Dog Workshop. Then also on my control valve, the little plate says Camp Wounded Dog Workshop. This particular guy, when I build these, I usually give it 3 test fires. When I first put the thing together, I do a pressure test where I pressurize it, put the whole thing underwater, and see if I got any bubbles coming up anywhere. If it passes the bubble test, then what I'll do is put some fuel in, pump it up, and fire it. And if it burns fine, then I let that fuel burn out, let it cool down, take it apart, look at everything to see if there's any areas of concern, put it back together, and do a second pressure test where I put fuel in, pump it up, burn it for another, an hour or two. And if that's fine, I let it cool, look at everything again. Then I put a little bigger load of fuel in and let the thing burn for about 2 to 3 hours just to make sure that we're okay. This particular one, although it's burning pretty good, it's not as bright as I would like it to be. So my guess is that maybe when I was putting the valve on, some of the sealant kind of clogged the valve and I'm not getting quite enough fuel up as I'd like. So I'm going to take this guy apart one more time just to make sure everything's okay. Now something else I do on mine that the 316 originals didn't have, I don't know if you can tilt it, right under the mantles, you can see a little cup. I put a preheater in. Most of our collectors today really don't have the touch for torch lighting lanterns. They don't get it right. So I put a preheater cup in that's metered or measured just enough, put alcohol in it, light it, and when the alcohol is just about burned off, your generator's hot enough to go, crack open the fuel valve, poof, you got a beautiful lantern. Alright, so that's where we're at. Let me know on what your thoughts are on your 319, if you want to go with Survivor or Restored, what you want to do on these reading lamps. In my opinion, unless you've got everything else for this guy, I don't know if it would be worth the investment, but I can do it for you. Get it back up to snuff. This guy will be pretty good. And I'm not sure which collar goes on which one, because they're all disassembled. If we replate this guy, get him nice and shiny, I'll put the sunshine collar on this guy, and we'll use the original torchlight generator. Alright, well, so that's it. I'm sorry it took a little longer to get this info to you than I thought it would. My wife ended up having surgery on Monday for a knee replacement, and it took a whole lot more of my time than I thought. And I also looked at all the stuff you sent me, and I really appreciate it. The Lord is good. People think I'm some sort of a genius on this stuff, but I tell them, no, it's a gift from the Lord. We know from the Bible that when the guys were building the temple, the Holy Spirit gave the workmen the ability to do the work. And the Lord knows that I need to help support my family. I'm sure the Holy Spirit helps me know how to do this stuff. I'm not that smart. Anyway, brother, you have a good week, and I'll be waiting to hear from you. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.